Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Friday, November 15th, 2019. Hey, gang, I'm going to do a quick little commentary here on this story here that was released a couple of days ago on CNBC. The Social Security retirement age could go up. Here's why that change won't be easy. Well, they'll do it anyway. George Carlin used to have a stand-up comedy routine where he would talk about, and it wasn't comedy, he was delivering a message that the government and the powerful, the elite, the Illuminati, I meant the one percenters, whatever you want to call them, they want your Social Security, and they're going to get it, regardless. They'll get it through inflation. They'll get it through any number of different mechanisms. But here's another one, which is raising the retirement age. Guys, I don't want to go through the history of Social Security right now on this podcast. I'm not really prepared for it. But when Social Security was first started, first of all, it was never meant to be a full retirement package. It was a supplement. And the way people retired, given, the long time scale I'm about to go through, 100 years ago, was by purchasing stocks. And back 100 years ago, almost all stocks paid dividends. So during your working lifetime, you would purchase stocks. They would send you stock certificates in the mail proving that you had ownership of those stocks. And then basically, as you continued purchasing these, you would take the dividends and repurchase more stocks along with, the allotment that you'd give monthly or yearly to buying more stocks. And you would just accumulate more stocks. And then when it came time to retire, you could live on the dividends of those stocks and then pass the stocks on to your kids. And that was the retirement 100 years ago. But when Social Security was introduced, that was during the Great Depression, it became a supplement to that because the stock market crashed, dividends were low, people were starving to death who used that plan. And not necessarily starving to death just because of that, but because also the economy, the general economy, was virtually destroyed at the time. So Social Security was brought in to bridge the gap in between these cycles. And as it's important to mention this, as it was supposed to be some kind of supplement to a retirement plan that you already had. So in today's terms, Social Security is supposed to be a supplement to what you have in your 401k. Now, most stocks don't pay dividends anymore. So you have to have, the stocks need to keep going up in value. That's the only way that it makes sense to retire this way. So what we have here is a program where they take roughly, I don't know the exact numbers, gang, I've been self-employed a long time, but I think it's about 8% out of your check, and they give it to Social Security. That's matched by 8% by your employer. Now that's 8% that your employer could give you in your paycheck, but they have to give to the government in the form of payroll tax. So 16% of the currency, I need to get that distinction down, that you earn goes to the federal government to this program called Social Security. Think if you put 16% of what you earned into gold or silver. Just think what that would do for you over your lifetime. Okay, I digress. So people are putting into way more money into Social Security than they put into their 401k. By far and large. I mean, most people put 5% into their 401k, but the government's taking 16% of what you earn, technically, because your employer's paying 8% of it, you're paying 8% of it. That's a employer match. So, and yet you can still expect to get more money out of your 401k. Well, why is that? How did that happen? Well, when Social Security was originally created, it was supposed to go entirely into the bond market. So basically, it was supposed to go into a place that was safe and that would earn some kind of yield. It would go up. Well, that's the way it was originally designed, and I don't have enough information in front of me to provide this really accurately. But I think it was sometime in the 60s, and it might have been a senator from Minnesota by the name of Hubert Humphrey, basically opened the lockbox to the bond market and provided that Social Security money to general revenue. And that's when Social Security became a Ponzi scheme. It actually became a Ponzi scheme at that point. Technically, it wasn't a Ponzi scheme when it was in bonds. So now it's a Ponzi scheme. It became part of general revenue. That money has been spent. It is gone. It's forever gone. Went to the contractors. The people going to the moon. The people building helicopters and machine guns for the Vietnam War, and it's gone. So what's left is now the people that are currently working are funding those who are currently retired. And then there is a bureaucracy in between, which is the federal government treasury and the Social Security office. So they're going to take their share of this money before it goes to the retirees. So this is why Social Security isn't anywhere near as effective as it was originally. And by the way, originally, it should never have been done. So I'm going to throw that out right now for those of you who are going to say, hey, TC, why are you siding, with Social Security? It's a socialist program. Yes, it is. And if people would literally take 16% of what they make and put it into gold and silver, you have no idea how wealthy you would be over a 40-year work life. You have no clue. All you have to do is go back and look at what silver was when you started working, what gold was when you started working, and look at the price today. It would have kept up with inflation, with money printing, and you would have a much, much larger nest egg that you would have control of. It wouldn't be a monthly allotment coming from the federal government. It would literally be money that you can do whatever you want with. Let's say in your retirement, you say, well, gosh darn it, I've got all this gold and silver. I've got, $1 million worth of gold and silver now. As opposed to literally selling it all off slowly, you could take that $1 million and invest in rental real estate and then live off of that money tax-free. So there are, okay, guys, I don't mean to get into a bunch of different strategies for retirement. That is not the purpose of this video, but I'm telling you, the government restricts your abilities to retire the way you could. And this is by design. Now, what George Carlin joked about was, the one percenters are going to get your Social Security whether you like it or not. They are coming for it. They will take it. Through inflation, that is correct, but also through this mechanism, raising the retirement age. Now, it is currently 67. I bet you they're going to move it to 70. And that's actually really close to how long people live in America anyway, which I believe the average, which has gone down in the last 20 years. But I do believe the average is right around 72.6 or 72.8 is the average lifetime of an American. So they're going to raise it to 70. And so that's their intention. Keep people working longer so they can pay taxes longer and keep them off the dole, if you will, as long as possible so they don't have to pay out Social Security. But I'll get into Obamacare aspects when Conjecture and I resume our healthcare special. And by the way, we've got 3 more definite programs planned, and the notes are ready for the second one, which we think we'll be doing this weekend. So we're going to go forward with that. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that I actually remember this signing. Tip O'Neill, look at that. Bob Dole, George Bush. I remember these folks. And that right there, when they were raising the retirement age, was something that was talked about a great deal at the time. And it became forgotten about because we're living so much longer, right? But the fact is, Social Security should not exist. The program should not exist. It should be completely gone. People literally should be saving in assets, not in fiat currencies that are inflationary. This is what the government has, the U.S. government and most governments of the world, force people into, is saving for retirement in an inflationary currency. Guys, I hope you understand what I'm saying here. The value of your currency is going down, yet you're forced to save in it through Social Security. This is really ridiculous, and in fact, it's actually immoral. And that's what they want. They want this immoral system to continue. Shoot, look at the stock market today. This is just nuts. This much green and everything. Once again, guys, these numbers aren't real. And I can prove that. Look at how much the stock market has been going up since, QE has resumed. Um, it's all going into the stock market. Some of it may be going into bonds. I think some of it's going into bonds, but most of it's going into the stock market. And why? To give you the perception that everything's fine, everything's kosher, everything's great. Warren Buffett, look at him. He invested in Apple when it was about $178 a share, and then it crashed down to 150 shortly after that. Everyone gave him a hard time. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this to us, Warren. Berkshire Hathaway used to be such a good outfit until you decided to throw in an Apple. He knew what was going on. He knew there was going to be more QE. He knew Apple was going to be a beneficiary of that. He's an insider, gang. So, how much more will these stocks go up? Well, technically, as basically QE resumes and continues, it may never go down again, the stock market. That's a possibility. Look at Venezuela. They're in a hyperinflationary depression, and their stock market has just gone to the sky. It has skyrocketed during that whole time. Their stock market didn't go down as their currency became absolutely worthless. That may happen here too, gang. So, is that a sound place to put your money? Well, no, because you don't know what the plan is. You're not an insider like Warren Buffett. So, you don't know exactly where to go. It'd have been nice to get in at $178 with it being $264 now. And believe me, that was about a year ago. So Warren, has made almost, what is it, 30%, 40% profit? You know, um, he's doing pretty good. So no issues there. But Warren's also holding $180 billion back in cash. What does he know? Well, he certainly knows that the best way of doing it is speculating on assets and not going into Social Security. Now, we in my generation, I'm Generation X, we in my generation joke that we'll be lucky if Social Security is enough to buy a loaf of bread every month, because inflation has overtaken the value of the currency. So this is what I would say to all of you, especially you young folk out there that may be watching this podcast. It is much better to save in precious metals than it is in fiat currency. Much, much better. There are many other assets. Like I gave the scenario about, people, if you under a 40, 45-year work life, you go ahead and maybe even a 50-year work life. If you take 18%, I'm sorry, 16%, which is what the government currently takes for you as an individual in Social Security, and you put that into gold and silver throughout that 50 years, you would be rich at the end of this. And you don't have to sell any off to retire. Sell it off slowly, piecemeal, so you can survive. Buy, real estate. Buy office building and charge renters. Get, rental homes, rent them out. The reason you want to do that is because there's no taxes with that income. And yeah, we'll talk about that in another podcast, but that's passive income. So this is a way you can get out of paying taxes. There are loopholes, my friends, but when they're taking your money and throwing it into Social Security and raising the retirement age, it's just another tax. That's all it is. It's just another freaking tax. They're taking your money with the intention of never returning it to you. This is a social program because if I pay, by the way, I've been paying to Social Security my whole life. And I'm self-employed, so we call it self-employment tax. It's not called Social Security for me. But my self-employment tax is, a lot. I have to pay all of it. I don't have an employer that pays half of it for me. So if you were to take that, like I said, and save in gold and silver, your problems would be over. I mean, it's that simple. If they force you to invest in a currency that goes down in value for your retirement, it is a self-defeating plan. It doesn't work. It will never work, yet they continue to force you into this. It's the same thing with the 401k, gang. If the market is only going up with money printing, then, basically you're not getting ahead. So, there's other things you can do. Just think about that for a second. It doesn't matter. We can't get out of Social Security without an enormous effort. There are ways out of it. And maybe I would, at some point, Erin Scott is a friend of mine. I don't know how many of you guys know her. She's a YouTuber. She has a great channel. She provides a lot of value on her channel, and I'm gonna probably do a shout out to her in a subsequent YouTube video very soon. But she talks about different ways that you can get out of the system, and this is something that's been missing from our channel. We complain a lot about the crap that we put up with because the government is all powerful. We don't do anything to stop it. There's no effort on our part to do something about it. So, there are ways out. There are things you can do. And that's partly what we're going to be covering in our next YouTube video, which is about the healthcare. Certain ways you can get around the system. So we will, and these are things that some of you probably already know about, but many of you probably don't. For instance, getting your glasses for about a quarter of the price of what you would pay going to an eye doctor. So these are just examples. But at any rate, I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I really do need to get to work. But when they're talking about raising the Social Security age, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. This is exactly what they intend to do. This is how it has been for a long, long time. I mean, you have to literally, look at this through history and just see that this is just another tax. It's all it was. And it's dressed up as a retirement plan. It's putting lipstick on the pig. This is just another tax, gang. That's all it is. They don't want you to get the benefits. And if I pass away, before I'm able to collect Social Security, do my next of kin actually get all that money I paid into Social Security? No, it goes to everyone else. That's why it's a socialist program. We're socialist here, gang. Social Security is proof of that. So is public schools. Another podcast for another time. But at any rate, I will link this story down below if any of you want to actually read it. And I just wanted to say to you guys that as they're looking at raising Social Security, the eligibility age for Social Security, I want you guys to think very strongly. For those of you who have not been saving in precious metals or even in cryptocurrencies as a hedge, I think you may want to consider doing that because they're not going to let you retire, gang. You have to do it on your own. Yes, they're going to take 8% out of your check and they're going to say that you can retire someday. They're lying. They're lying to you. This is very basic math. The whole system is based on debt. The whole system is starting to collapse in slow motion. We have two forms of QE going on. We have emergency financial policy enacted right now as I'm doing this podcast. It's been going on since September 23rd, I believe, almost 2 months now. Emergency measures are being taken to keep the banks from collapsing. And this is why they're doing it. And what are they doing with a lot of that money? They're throwing it in the stock market. Propping it up, making it look good. So you guys, or not you guys are pretty intelligent. And I know this from your comments. But the vast majority of people really do assume that the stock markets, the indices, the numbers themselves in the indices are a measuring stick for the health of the economy. They are not. The stock market has never, ever been a measuring stick for the health of the economy. At least not, until, before 1913 it may have been, but it is not anymore. We just print money. So there, basically, how do you measure that, for the health of the economy when money is constantly being printed? And also, too, when the Federal Reserve has a second hidden balance sheet that they don't want to talk about. There's just no way to know where you stand anymore, right? Well, historically, this is how you protect yourself is precious metals. That's what you do. Okay, gang, I have got to get to work. I will link this story down below. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen to Truth, Money, and Freedom. We love and respect all of you guys. Thank you for hanging around with us. And as always, may God bless each and every one of you and your families as well. Have a wonderful day.